Hi, it's Liz. Today we're going to talk about the Janome Memory Craft 500E. This is a revised version. So as I get to know the machine more and more, I'm learning a lot more stuff, a lot of things that I wish I knew, and this is a video all about that. So I got my machine when certain places weren't allowing you to go into stores, so you had to do a curbside pickup. So, which was fine by me. I took a ferry over, went to Vancouver, and I picked it up. The only thing is I wasn't shown anything. I was just handed the machine. I was all excited, ready to go, but soon realized there wasn't that much information on the instructions. It was more about here's how to, use the bobbin winder and all that stuff, which is great. The majority of the stuff I'm guessing is maybe on the CD-ROM. I didn't have a CD-ROM player to view all those options, so it does kind of leave you hanging, and YouTube at that time, and probably still, doesn't have a ton of Janome videos of how to use the machine and what to do. So I just kind of wung it, and that's kind of what's reflected in that first video. Now that I have used my machine for a little bit and read all your comments, and they have been so helpful. So the first thing that I learned is that you really do need to use embroidery thread, specifically embroidery thread. Just because your machine is running such a high volume and it's going so fast, you need to use really embroidery thread, because otherwise things are going to start breaking. The fluff is going to start capturing into your machine. It's really good to read on the manual how to clean your machine, so you are doing that and you can check it out. The other big thing is Janome has their own specific embroidery needles. They come in purple tipped and red tipped. So I use the purple one because I'm using 505 temporary adhesive spray. If I wasn't using that glue spray, I would use the red tipped one. So they are definitely, I used embroidery needles on this machine that were Janome and definitely didn't last as long. When I took it to the sewing machine shop, they were saying the needles actually had punctured down and nicked some of the metal, so they had to file it down because that was causing some issues. So you're really using just only Janome brand needles, and I found them to be a much better quality, and it does last longer, and I'm not having to change out my needles as much. The other big thing, which I read actually in the comments from the first video, so thank you to that viewer who commented down below, is using only plastic bobbins. So no metal bobbins. The metal bobbins can kind of dance around into your bobbin thread area, and that can start dinging it up. So you really just want to use plastic bobbins. So that was another huge oh no, I've been doing that completely wrong and incorrect. So when I first got my machine, I also didn't realize you need a digitizing software or something if you wanted to have an image that you created or that you thought of and making it into an embroidery file. So Janome uses JEF files, so Janome specific files that you have to convert into. So you can use different software, digitizing software. It's going to be extra. So I remember when I got the machine, I was like, oh, how much is this digitizing software? You can get Janome specific software as well, and they said the price, and I was like, okay, well that's pretty high for where I'm at right now. Thanks. I'm just going to figure out what to do with my machine at this time. So the machine does have some saved pictures and fonts in it. It's very, very minimal, of course, but it gets you going to try and experiment with different colors, what you need to do, how it all works, and kind of just looking at the interface and getting used to it. So what I have been doing, I still haven't gotten the digitizing software because that is another huge learning curve for me, is is that I am just using files that I have bought that have already been digitized. A lot of times it just already comes with a package with multiple different file types, and then I just get my JEF file. So I put my file on a USB stick. From that USB stick, I then put it in my Janome machine. So you're able to add multiple patterns on top of each other. So I have added, say, a one pattern and then wanted a border around it. You can do that and add those things. It does take a little bit of a learning curve to figure it out. It is a touch screen as well. So it does come with a little stylizer, so you don't have to use your finger all the time, which is really great. Alright, so this is the Janome MemoryCraft 500E machine. I have just run the pattern through, and this is a purchased pattern that I have bought, and it is a bulldozer. It comes in many different sizes, and these are actually two patterns. So this one is the bulldozer's one full pattern, and then the second pattern is shapes. So I've added two patterns together that you can use, and I have a stabilizer on here. This is tearaway stabilizer, but you can also use cutaway. So at the top of the machine we have the bobbin winder. I actually don't use this. If I wind up all my bobbins, I usually do it at a batches at a time, and I find it easier to do it on my home sewing machine. It's quicker and easier. So you want to be using embroidery thread. So if you are using this size of thread, this is 1,000 meter thread. This one's number 40. I've been using Glide embroidery thread, but there is a multitude of embroidery threads to use. So kind of maybe contact your local embroidery store and see what they sell, because there is such a wide selection of thread and you really kind of want to see it in person. So you would put your thread at the top here, and then you would follow the directions which are on top of your machine, threading it this way, coming down, up, through the loop, back over, and then through the needle. I have been using these 5,000 meter cones, and so they don't fit on the machine. It's too heavy and too bulky. You can buy an additional stand that threads it through. I found a little hack where you just use a ruler and some clips and a basket, and you put that big cone into it. So that's what I have been using, and the tension has been fine. So the machine does have a scissor thread, so if you have the presser foot down and you press that, it will cut the thread for you. So down here it does also have a self threader added to it, so you would press that down to do that. I, for some reason, do not use it. My eyesight is still top notch, so just force a habit, I just thread it pretty easily. Down here you just have a bobbin, and press that, it comes up. Your bobbin will fit into there. There is instructions in the manual where you would come up and bring it around, and there's a little cutting tool in there, and so that your bobbin thread isn't going to be showing up when you first start sewing. So this arm here is automatic, so do not try to hold it or hold up with it or try to move it. It moves on its own. So we're now at this right hand side of the embroidery machine. We have right here is your stylizer. Mine did come with two stylizers, one that holds into here and a spare one that came in a bag with some clear bobbins and some other instruments as well. I do have my USB stick that is in there because I am using a file right now from my USB stick, the off and on button, and then the cable as well. So when you turn on your machine, you will get the screen to light up. So right now I do have this file on here. I just completed it. It gives me the hoop size, and that will also be on your hoop if you look at the hoop. So this is your hoop. I have some stabilizer on it. Down here it's going to tell you the hoop size, so you just want to match that. So next you have the dimensions. So 114 by 114 millimeters is this frame of the box. It's going to tell you how fast it's going, automatic, and how many colors you have and how long it's going to take. This is how long it's going to take the machine time. Because this is a single thread machine, you'll have to change out the colors manually. So we have down here, we have how many stitches it is total. And then here we have what color and what order it's coming into. So just down here, it does have these buttons that you can press. You can use the stylizer or you can use your finger, and it's actually just gonna go to the next color or back to the previous color. So if I press this, it actually moves the handlebar too, and it does move it up here a little bit, but not always correct where exactly it's going to go. If something happens and you stopped it, or there's a thread break and you notice that the stitches are not in line and you want this to move the stitches back, not just that color, you would use these plus and minus buttons up here. So now I've moved it one stitch ahead, I have moved it one stitch back. So those ones are definitely the key elements that I have found to be extremely useful, because sometimes you don't notice a thread break and you do need to go back because it's like you're doing a border and it's pretty obvious. So we're gonna go to our home right now. So usually when you start up your machine, you'll see these three buttons. So one of them is your design, ABC, so that's your font, and then this is just a grid pattern. So we can choose the grid pattern, and this will actually take us back to the design area. So again, at the very top, we're using the size of the embroidery hoop. If we're not liking that size, we can toggle over and we find this icon. Press this icon, and then you have a multitude of shapes to choose from. So because this is a touchscreen, I can touch this. This is one file and this is one file. So if I'm wanting to move this, I can touch it, move it up or down, or trash it if I don't like it. This is the trash bin. This one is a useful one if you want to save it. So now that I've added these two ones together, I like to save mine to your USB or to your embroidery machine. So I usually try to save mine to the USB because I also don't want to make this, I don't know, slower or anything. So I just want to have it saved, and then you can bring it up and continue on. So this one is also that it'll mirror the image, the heart, so top and bottom. The only thing with the mirroring image, of course, is if you have directional things, like I did a dog at the top here, and then when I mirrored it, it mirrored the dogs at the bottom, and the tail was actually the opposite way. So if you're fine with that, that's okay. This is another feature that I just learned about. So it has two flowers, one's at the back and one's at the front. The one at the back is fully colored. So this one is all fully colored. So I'm going to have to stop and start to get each of these colors. But if I wanted it one solid color, say if I wanted to use a yellow background and everything was going to be white or maybe black, you would lose some detailing, of course, but it would be all one go. I would click this and it wouldn't stop for anything. It would just keep going, and there would be no color changes. It's really great if you're saying doing a shape and you have multiple times where you're having to stop and start. I don't have right now the option to do any modifications within the file itself. All right, so your options here are home, which will take you to this screen, and you can choose. This one is the ones that are already in the machine. So you can play with these ones and just put some stabilizer on it and a piece of fabric and just try it out. Do some lettering, do some shapes, could do anything. So the next one is the file. and we click on it. Right now I have up here, it's my USB stick, and so these are my files. If you have a ton of files, it sometimes takes a while for it to load up, but you can also save the files to your Janome embroidery machine. So that I click up there, I do have a couple files saved. So I've got, or one file, I've got this beagle saved. All right, so I'll show you this shape file, and say if I'm going to choose a square applique. So these are all the files that are in my shape file. So these are other machine types and other types of embroidery files. I could actually should go back and remove them and just keep the JEF file, because now these are all taking up space and really I only need my JEF file to choose from. And you have options of how you would like to see it. I like to see them all, or just depending if you are wanting a certain size to select. So back over here we have some settings, the question button, and lock. So the little icon here, lock, is good because it will lock the machine so that nothing moves. So if you have, say, a thread break or even like a bunch of thread bunching, you don't want it to go any further, you would obviously press your stop button, but then you could also lock it just to make sure it's not going to move further. And it's just simply clicking the unlock or lock key again for it to unlock. All right, I forgot also a really important tip is when you are changing your needle, you want to make sure you use a screwdriver and tighten the needle up. Super important so it doesn't come out, it doesn't bend anything. It actually stays in place because it's going at such a high volume. You need to tighten it up. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any other questions or comments or any other tips for me, please leave them in the comments and I'll talk to you later. Bye!